This is from the Toronto Star, which is surprising. Toronto Star are, they're all in for the Liberal Party. I think what's happening now, the legacy media, is it's not that they don't hate they like the Liberal Party. They want the Liberal Party to win, but they've come to grips with the fact that dear leader Justin Trudeau is hurting their beloved party. So they're finally deciding that maybe it's best if he just goes. I mean, they love the fact that he says current year, that he does things because it's current year. They love that. They love the fact that he wants to give sex changes to every child in the country. They love that. They love the fact that he's doubled the national debt. They love that. They love the fact that he calls everybody who disagrees with them, a racist or a misogynist or a white supremacist or far right or MAGA. They love that. It's just that it's not working, right? He's burning down the party. He's burning the Liberal Party to the ground. He's destroying it, and they don't like that. And I think with a great deal of sadness and regret, they just think it's time for Justin Trudeau to go, or they're just at least entertaining the idea that dear leader, maybe his time has run out. Maybe he's worn out his welcome. And, you don't have to believe me. Here's the federal projections, federal vote projections. Look at this, 21-point lead for the Conservatives over the Liberals. They're not going to recover that. Even if they replace the leader, they're not going to recover that. Look, odds of outcome for a Conservative Party majority, in which case they wouldn't have to work with any other parties to pass any legislation, greater than 99%. Sure, the election probably is not going to be until October next year, maybe in the spring. If nothing happens, if there's not a revolt, if he's not just forced out somehow. But it doesn't matter at this point. It doesn't matter how it could be in 3 years. It's just going to get worse the longer he's in power, I guess is my point. Inside the growing calls among MPs for Justin Trudeau to step down. Obviously, you got a bunch of MPs that are worried about losing their jobs, losing their seats. It's going to be a slaughter in the next election. It was short, concise, and eyebrow-raising. At the Liberals' National Caucus meeting in Ottawa on Wednesday morning, the chair of the Atlantic Caucus, an ambitious young Nova Scotia MP named Cody Blas, went to the microphone to report on the discussions earlier held at the regional caucus. Quote, Atlantic Caucus had a difficult, frank, and open conversation about the future of the party, he told Liberal MPs. Then he left. That's it. Doesn't sound like they're happy. MPs looked at each other. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was not there. Of course he wasn't there. He's running away from his problems, I think. He'd left earlier in the week for Laos for a meeting of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Quote, people were like, what does that mean? Recounted one MP in the room. It means they don't like Justin. I guess it's like, if you don't have anything positive to say, don't say anything at all. It's sending a message is what it means. As the Star earlier reported, there is growing frustration that the planned ad campaign discussed last month at the caucus meeting in Nanaimo, BC, hasn't materialized, that there is no national campaign director announced and no cabinet shuffle yet. What's also changed in the last few weeks is that since Parliament has been back, Liberal MPs have spent a lot of time together. They've started talking to each other more openly, more candidly. And they've come to realize beyond their circles of trust, there are more MPs who share their point of view. What point of view is that? Trudeau's got to go. Trudeau's campaign manager quit, and they still haven't replaced him, apparently. So, that's bad. He quit because he didn't think that Trudeau could win, because he looked at this like every other person in Canada, apparently, aside from Justin Trudeau. Trudeau is refusing to acknowledge reality. But last week's Nanos poll showing the NDP ahead of the Liberals didn't help. Neither did the Prime Minister's interview on Liberal MP Nate Erskine-Smith's podcast, which seemed to further demonstrate to MPs the lack of urgency to execute on any strategy that could restore public support. Yeah, he just refuses to acknowledge reality anyway. He can go on all the podcasts, he can do all the interviews that he wants. But if everything he's saying is just delusional, like Canadians are excited for another 500,000 permanent residents every year, just not true. Canadians are super not excited about that, and the polling shows it. More MPs appear to have concluded that they can't win under Trudeau. Their constituents report being afraid of Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives. And option C has become liberal revolt. Get a new leader. In the words of another MP. Their constituents report being afraid of Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives. I hope you're proud of that, of your propaganda, what your propaganda has achieved. They're afraid. It should be rewritten. Their constituents report being afraid of reality and common sense. But anyway, and option C has become liberal revolt, get a new leader, in the words of another MP. Obviously, these conversations are going to be going on. I mean, they're going like 100 MPs are going to lose their seats, right? Of course they're worried about this. Of course, it is so obvious. Who could not see the disaster looming and how much Trudeau is disliked, not even disliked, despised across this country. MPs were granted anonymity to speak candidly without fear of repercussions about internal party matters. The result is at least one effort. There appears to be several groups of MPs talking to publicly pressure the Prime Minister to step down. This is not your usual rabble-rousers. This runs deeper than that, offered a third MP. I don't know what it would take to get Trudeau to step down. Honestly, I don't know if he ever would. I don't know if there's any amount of public humiliation that could force him to step down. I mean, he might just be that delusional and narcissistic. I mean, we can all pray that he does. I don't think it will help the parties, the Liberal Party's fortunes in any way. I think that their name is mud right now. But yeah, there's something uniquely awful and destructive about Trudeau when it comes to Canadian politics. We've never seen anybody this destructive and counterproductive and condescending and arrogant, and I think malign. Like, I don't think that Trudeau's father, well, I think Pierre Elliott Trudeau, although being a terrible PM and, leaving the country with a massive national debt, just like his son, I don't think he actually hated Canada, though. Like, I think he actually did like the country. He was just really bad at being prime minister. Let's see. They've talked about storming the microphone at caucus to urge Trudeau to resign. Sounds like it's getting serious. Calls were being made this week asking MPs to sign a letter. There are at least 30 to 40 MPs ready to sign it, according to several caucus sources. Well, that won't be enough, but I mean, if that's just the start, that's good. More MPs believe Trudeau should step aside, but getting a critical mass, said a fourth MP, which is at least half of the Liberal caucus, or 76 MPs, to sign it might be a challenge. 37 out of 152 MPs are already cabinet ministers. Several aspiring backbenchers and parliamentary secretaries hope their ticket will come up in a cabinet shuffle, one that is rumored to happen before the end of November. Others are hedging their bets, wanting to ensure that the resulting movement amounts to something, that they are not putting themselves into a position where they will be hung out to dry. How about just some courage? I mean, if you guys actually give a shit about the country, you know that Trudeau has to go. I mean, just the Liberal Party itself will be better off with literally anybody. Anybody. You could just pick somebody off the street and put him in, and people will like them better than they like Trudeau. In fact, it's almost certain that if they even just have the slightest bit of affection for the country, that they'll make better choices than Trudeau, because everything that Trudeau has done seems explicitly designed to ruin the country. Everything. But anyway, I mean, I guess you can tell I don't like Trudeau, right? But how about just show a little bit of spine, a little bit of courage? Like, show that you actually care about the country, that you're not just, like others are hedging their bets, wanting to ensure that the resulting movement amounts to something. Well, why not just do it? I mean, you'll earn more respect. You'll earn more respect for a political future and a better political future by showing that you have some backbone now, instead of just being craven cowards, and clearly self-interested. Several aspiring backbenchers and parliamentary secretaries hope their ticket will come up in a cabinet shuffle. Yeah, like rearranging the decks on the Titanic. Really? That's how you want to succeed? You're going to scheme self-interestedly while the Titanic sinks? Honestly, It's kind of gross, isn't it? Will those organizing the current effort be successful? It's too early to tell. Several former advisors and trusted friends have told Trudeau recently he should go. Nothing appears to have changed. Could this movement lead to something different? Will Trudeau prorogue Parliament to save his and his government's future? Proroguing is basically suspending Parliament. And the one really positive side of that is that all of his legislation gets scrapped, including the stuff that's at the Senate. So everything gets scrapped and has to be started all over again. So his internet censorship bill C-63, with the pre-crimes and all of that, that would all get scrapped. It would have to be started again from scratch, which would mean it's very unlikely that would ever actually become law, which would be a fantastic thing. So I'm kind of hoping that he prorogues the government, because I don't think he's going to step. I don't think he's going to step down. And he's going to try and push his censorship bills because he thinks that will give him an advantage in the next election. If dissenting voices can be shut down by his woke stormtroopers, essentially. Or will he face the growing calls for him to go from an increasingly dissatisfied caucus? As as the Prime Minister's office ponders how to mute the mutiny before it begins, MPs are left to wonder how long the Prime Minister can really hang on. Well, every last second is the answer. I don't think he's going to step down. I think he's delusional at this point. He's not going to go. They are going to have to drag him out screaming. I think he's determined to go to last every second that he can. And why is that? Honestly, at this point, I mean, nobody could think that there's no person who had done the same things as him, passed the same legislations as him, that have the same record of leadership as him, and think that they've done a good job. You can't look at the polls and think that the public thinks you've done a good job. That's impossible. Why is he doing it then? He's not doing it to serve the country, clearly. Clearly, if he really cared, he would have reversed his policies, pretty much all of them, years ago. Said, this isn't working. Let's move on. Let's try something else. Somebody who cared would have done that. Trudeau doesn't. It almost feels like, again, with his obsession with jamming as many people into the country as possible, even though now he's talking about, we're going to cut down on the foreign students. He's still gleefully talking about the 500,000 permanent residents a year, which is an insane number for a country the size of Canada in terms of population, in terms of infrastructure. Why is he still doing that? He knows it's wrecking the country. He knows the country can't handle that. The economy can't handle it. Healthcare can't handle it. The infrastructure can't handle it. Nothing can handle it. It's just too much. Yet he's still gleefully moving forward and gaslighting Canadians about how that's what they really want. Canadians really want that. Canadians want all of rural India to come to Canada. Not really. Not really. Ask us. We'll tell you. It might be too many people. Yet he keeps doing it. Who is he serving? He's not serving the Canadian people. He's serving something else. I think at this point, what else are we to conclude? Is he serving people that he goes and meets every year in Davos? People at the UN? He's not serving Canadians. So anyway, I mean, look, the writing's on the wall. He's done. He's done. I'm hoping that there will be some successful attempt to get him to step down, because he is just, every day that he's in power, it's worse. It's a little bit more damage. It's every day that he's in power. I don't know what, it's probably a month of damage that will have to be reversed. I mean, we're talking generational damage at this point, not stuff that can be fixed in 4 years or 8 years. But there we have it. Growing calls among MPs for Justin Trudeau to step down. I guess we'll find out. Anyway, I'd like him to leave. Everybody just wants him to go. Please go. He's that guy. The party's over. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. He's still nursing the third of the 4 California coolers he brought, and he won't fucking go home. That's Justin Trudeau. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. Please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.